With Atlanta in the books, Brian and I are stacking cash, getting ready to head to Vegas and blow it all, baby. We're gonna spray the board. We're gonna find some winners and hopefully keep this train going. So we'll recap Atlanta. We'll talk Vegas and everything in between on today's Angle of Pursuit podcast.
Ross Chastain used the wall all the way around this racetrack.
Logano has been the class of the field.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
Yeah, I need to change my underwear.
Brian Twining, we did it. We had a week. Potentially, like I was texting with you earlier, I think the only week that I can think of that rivaled this one is spring Vegas last year. Obviously, we were there. I had the Byron ticket, which I found at circa 17-1. Got to cash that live. Thank you, Kyle Larson, for living up to your bed shitter nickname. Appreciate Eric Almirola spinning and giving me a chance at a restart.
That was probably the moment that you and I realized, oh crap, this has a shot of actually hitting.
Yeah. Because I was like, oh, it's dead. He's gonna get second or third, and it's fine. Larson's was dominant, and then I was like, Almirola, I don't know who you bet on or what you did, but I appreciate you. But hell of a week. Shouts to everybody who tuned into our DFS pod.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, we broke the 1K barrier for the first time, which is very, very cool. We appreciate all the subs. We appreciate you guys sharing your winnings on DraftKings or on both on DraftKings and at the betting window on Twitter. Shout out to Panther Rob for the shout out to us and saying how much we help him if we can cobble together some coherent sentences and help you guys win money. That's our goal each and every week. I'm almost more excited when you guys win based on what we're saying rather than even when we win. But Brian, we had a week and it was really fun. Did. And we had potentially the best NASCAR race I remember since we started doing this.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb, and I tweeted it during it. Like, in my time of watching NASCAR, at least like paying full attention to it, this is easily the best race I've ever watched.
Yeah, we've been doing this basically 4 years, since the everything shut down during COVID, and NASCAR was one of the first ones to come back. Following it, understanding what we're talking about, and really being invested in the sport. I want to say it's one of the best races. Obviously, there was shenanigans. Obviously, there was accidents. I think they were saying only 7 cars didn't end up in some sort of nonsense, but a fun race, compelling race, lots of strategy, and then obviously the photo finish at the end. And if it had been Ryan Blaney or it had been Kyle Busch and not Daniel Suarez, I'd probably be saying the same thing because it was a fun race, but the fact that we're able to put that cherry on top of the sundae only made it sweeter.
Yeah, like obviously when you cash a bet, it's definitely going to affect the way that you potentially look at a race. But regardless of winnings or losings, like the fact that these guys actually had to drive their cars and not just run single file or in a train like we saw at Daytona or like we see at Talladega most of the time, that to me was the most compelling part of it. And then for them coming down to the finish, those last 6 laps, like we've heard drivers complain about the respect levels at the lower levels of the sport. Like these guys were door banging, but nobody wrecked anybody. Everybody was very respectful coming to the finish line. I mean, for those guys to come to the checkered 3 wide within a thousandth of a second of each other and nobody wreck and no craziness to happen, like says a lot about the integrity of those, especially those 3 individuals.
For sure. And with Kyle Busch up there, who likes to mix it up, does not care. Ryan Blaney, obviously, and Suarez. And obviously, depending on who you bet or who your favorite driver is, you might have seen it at least live, how you wanted to see it. Obviously, holding the tickets we were holding, I was like, oh, that's Daniel Suarez. He just won. and then they said unofficially he won, and I was waiting for actually Ryan Blaney won. And then they showed it, and he was millimeters. So that was very cool. I also want to shout out Cody Zeeb and his podcast. We'll link that down in the description because during the NASCAR betting preview show. He mentioned in the comments about Michael McDowell as a good bet to qualify on the poll. Jumped on that at 40-1 and was able to cash that too. So that was really nice. I'm trying to tweet out my poll bets. So make sure you're following me over on Twitter. But yeah, Brian, let's jump into it. Let's review the week and go through all of our thoughts because it was a hell of a week. So let me do this.
Get ready to put pedal to the metal because there's a lot of green coming your way.
Can't wait for Vegas. It's as fun as Atlanta was. I think Vegas might even be my favorite race. And obviously, like we talked about, we go to it a lot. So it's and you'll definitely be there. So if you are in Vegas, hit up Brian. He will happily say hello, sign autographs, kiss babies, whatever you want.
The only thing that does it is kind of not the best situation, like being at the race, or especially being at Vegas and being a heavy sports bettor, is the fact that I'm there in a work capacity. So in the media center, you're not allowed to get wild or celebrate. So if it does come to that, I'm going to do the Willie Mays Hayes moment from Major League and have to very quietly excuse myself.
I want to see you in the press box, Pockris behind you, just crushing beers because one of your outrights just cashed.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk DraftKings because it was a good week on DraftKings too.
Yes.
I did make the swap on this lineup from Logano to Blaney. We talked about both of those guys being our favorite option. And then when Logano had the penalty and ended up moving to the back, I did make the swap. I was worried I was going to feel really dumb because Logano ended up getting to the front and leading laps anyways. But then ended up having an issue, crashed, and was out of the race. So felt like that was good. Elliott, Chastain, Eric Jones, like we had a good week. Fading Eric Jones was actually a good move though. There was some comments about him and how much of a chalky how chalky he was going to be. And I mentioned even on I think in the one of the video comments about if you want to fade him, this could be a good place to pivot. And obviously there was opportunity. And my favorite DraftKings play on our Substack newsletter that is completely free. AOP podcast.substack.com. Also link that there. Brian and I give you our 3 favorite DraftKings picks plus 2 bets plus our full betting card. And if Underdog gets their shit together, we put pick'ems up. They obviously were asleep at the wheel there. We did get some feedback, and we were going to update a little bit for next week. So we'll do this show. We'll do our normal DraftKings show, and at the end, if we have any outright
we'll go back over that.
Post-qualifying, we'll make sure we mention it there, and then any head-to-heads, placings, that kind of stuff, that'll all be in the newsletter. So make sure you subscribe. It's completely free. And it comes to your email every Sunday morning before the race, or if it's a Saturday race, obviously it'll be before the race on Saturday. So subscribe to the YouTube if you haven't done that. We're working our way to 700. I really appreciate everybody who's along for the ride.
We got to get to that 1,000 sub mark, man, and then we could do some kind of crazy giveaway or something.
We'll definitely make that happen. Appreciate everybody who jumped in the GridRivals contest. I think there's still time to get into that. You'll get the lowest score.
Still open. You'll jump in with
jump in, have fun.
And something points.
Completely free $100 gift card if you win that thing. Still time. Obviously, it's only the 3rd race of the year. You'll get points for the first 2, and then you'll be off and running. So there's still time to do that. So overall, it's really good. I do want to throw up the optimal lineup from Sunday. And we were close. We were on a lot of these guys.
We were.
I think Stenhouse was really the only one, which in retrospect kind of feels stupid. Just because he's so good on like fast super speedway type tracks. But Cindric, Suarez, Chastain, Bubba, and Blaney were all guys that we were excited about. We were so close to a perfect lineup. And honestly, Brian, it was kind of interesting. We talked about some ownership. Obviously, the guys that were heavily owned weren't very popular or weren't in the optimal, but like also not cheap guys or not like low owned guys either. It was kind of a good, bunch of guys in that kind of 12 to 20 something range. which I thought was interesting. So there's always ways to kind of be unique, and obviously this is one race. It doesn't mean that every race is going to be like that, but don't feel like you have to push yourself to someone super low owned, just because it's you have some high owned guys.
It just depends on like how many rosters or how many
Mhm.
lineups you're actually setting, though.
Yeah. And I would say don't go out of your way to not do it. Like obviously, the easiest way to get first place is to be on somebody that not a lot of people are on. Be the guy you need, and obviously you can get there. So, but this was a good lineup. We finished 40th out of 600 and something. So that was really nice. Obviously, we had some solid options across the board. Going Haley over Josh Williams was definitely a
Thank
move.
goodness.
Pulled the top 20. Like I said, if we pivoted off Eric Jones to somebody else in that kind of 8K range, we would have been even higher. But top 40, scoring almost 300 points. I'm pretty happy with that. We also had this lineup, which is it's the same lineup, just in a different contest. So this was in the 3 max, so got 126 there. This was another lineup. Keselowski was, I think, really good until he obviously crashed, and then Williams at 3%, I think, would have been good if he had the dinger race or even like a top 15 day.
Yeah.
He was in that early crash, and then once that happened, he was done.
I just want to like go back to that real quick. When that happened, coming to, I believe it was like as they were crossing the start finish line to begin the race, essentially.
Yeah.
I immediately thought to myself, "Oh no, we're in for an absolute shit show here, and just rip up all of my tickets.
Yep.
Just rip up everything."
And we sort of there was lots of accidents, lots of issues, but also a lot of really good racing, and then ultimately ended up being an incredible finish. So, but yeah, no, I was with you. I thought we were going to have like 37 cautions, and if you could keep all 4 tires on your car, you could win the race.
Well, I mean, you don't even need all 4 tires, as is the case with Carson Hocevar, who got launched into the air and still finished.
I can't believe Carson Hocevar beat John Hunter Nemechek. I am so mad.
Dude, he's good, man. He's got a lead foot. He's fast. No matter what he's in, he's fast.
So annoyed. And he was winning the whole day, so I thought I was gonna luck box my way in after he ended up in one of the final wrecks, and he still ended up jumping over Nemechek and getting in front of him by like 1 spot. Chase Briscoe, by the way, was really good most of the day. And just, I don't know if he tried to go too soon. I don't know if the car just didn't have it, but like he kept stepping out and kept getting squirrely. They were even talking about on the broadcast for like 10 laps, which, by the way, I'm really enjoying Kevin Harvick in the booth.
He is incredible.
I know he did Xfinity and got his reps in, which is great. I think it's really smart that NASCAR is kind of having current drivers get their reps in and try it there to see if they have what it takes. But he's really good. I think he's insightful. I don't think he talks over anybody or like does too much. But
yeah, I think he brings the right amount of expertise.
Yeah.
But and he puts it in layman's terms to where you don't have to be a NASCAR expert to understand what he's telling you about what's going on.
And I also think he's a good compliment to Clint Boyer, who's just like, very, very animated and saying lots of stuff. And he's also willing to give Clint shit when he needs it, which I think is funny because sometimes Clint Boyer will just say stuff to say stuff. And Kevin will kind of give him a little jab and kind of keep him in his place. So I think they have a nice little, a nice little booth. So I'm excited to see kind of how he gets better throughout the season. Also threw this one together for more of a cash lineup. I just did a big $25 double up. The Blaney Elliott added Bowman and LaJoy here. LaJoy was rock solid. Bowman was underwhelming.
One of my favorite DK plays again.
Look at this. Elliott in cash, 91%. Eric Jones, 92%. And LaJoy, 83%. Priest was actually really good. And was solid. So pretty happy. And then the fact that Blaney was only like 12% and had a really good race. I know where he was starting, and in cash, maybe you want to just load up on back markers, but top 20 out of like 68. I'm not, top third. I'm happy with that in a cash lineup because it's all I need. Let's talk betting because my goodness. So I didn't even have my poll bets on here because I didn't talk about them on the show. But as I mentioned, I did have McDowell. I am going to try and tweet those out. So it's another reason to follow me on Twitter. But Daniel Suarez, 35-1 for half a unit. His number actually moved. I was tempted to double down, didn't. But that's okay. Suarez top Chevy at 14-1. Love that as well. Trying to keep my units in play, so I'm not going too crazy. Obviously, have a great week, and that's what that is. Cindric over Bubba, I liked that at plus money.
That one came down to the wire, man, because Bubba was right there at the
They're
end.
both top 5, I think, at fourth and fifth, respectively.
Yeah.
So and then I had like Cindric top 4. He was right there. If Blaney hadn't had it. So I feel really good about where we ended up. I feel really good about the amount of bets. Like it was probably a little aggressive, but it was fun and it was good. Obviously, good race and a winning week. So I'm not going to complain. Brian, on the other hand, had his 7 bets. Had the Suarez outright. Had Chastain over Larson, which is a nice bet at plus money. Elliott over Logano, which is a nice bet at plus money. Blaney over Larson at plus money. And then the Cindric top 10 at almost 2-1. So heck of a week there, Brian. Didn't go too crazy. Found some nice matchups, some good opportunities to get some plus money matchups.
Let me say on that Cindric top 10, I did put down a few more units than I had for the show purposes. So I was really hoping that hit, but that number just seemed astronomical for a guy who's as good as he is at super speedways, and he proved it.
And so we can look at our season long, Brian. Last year at this point, we were trying to dig ourselves out of the Daytona hole. This year, I'm up 20 units, 20 and a half units. You're up 12.3 units. So really, really strong start to the season. We got to keep this gravy train rolling. And we'll dive into Vegas where we got some stuff to talk about. So pulling up Action Network here, we have DK, we have Caesars, and we have GridRivals. Obviously, we'll look at other options. We are recording this on Tuesday, so still waiting for a lot of this information to populate, but it's a good jumping off point. Talk about some of the names we're excited about, talk about some of the opportunities, and kind of where we're at. So Kyle Larson, your big favorite he was, I think, as long as 5-1, 5.5-1 when he opened.
Yeah,
obviously,
he opened at 5, I believe.
Getting crushed. Was the best driver in this race last year. I guess Byron was the best driver and dominated like 80% of that, 90% of that. Then Larson got to the front, and then we ended up obviously.
I almost feel like that was just Larson biding time, just chilling behind Byron, because I think overall Larson was faster.
Yeah,
but
and if it was like Kyle Busch or Austin Cindric or somebody else, maybe he's more aggressive early.
Yeah, but because they're teammates, like he's just fine chilling behind him.
Yeah, is out, and then Byron behind him at 7 or 8. Denny, Chris Bell, Ryan Blaney, are all inside 10-1, and then we start talking like Martin Truex, Tyler Reddick. Kyle Busch is kind of inside that top 10, so inside 10-1 or so. So I guess of these options from Kyle Busch, Tyler Reddick, Martin Truex, Blaney, Chris Bell, Denny Hamlin, William Byron, and Kyle Larson, where does your head go? Who is most compelling at their current price?
Well, I mean, if we're going to bet pre-practice and qualifying, because this is really coming into play for the first time this season, you got to find guys who are more than likely going to be qualifying up near the front. And I think of this group, outside of Larson, both Byron and Bell have been qualifying machines. Bell, I think, has put it on pole here twice in the last 4 in the 4 next gen races. So I don't hate his number. And then Denny is always within like the top 7 qualifiers, and he always has a fantastic car. But he just has some issues here that he can't seem to iron out in the next gen. So I'm a little more curious to see him in practice and that stuff. So I he's like one of the few guys that I'm not really interested in betting right now. And then like the Fords, Blaney, I don't know what we're going to see out of them qualifying. I'm a little worried, or I'm extremely interested to see what their practice looks like, because we saw it last year. They came out here, they were balls of fire, all of them. Logano, Blaney, Cindric, they were fast as hell. Their numbers plummeted, and then during the race, they plummeted through the running order because they had zero long run speed.
Yeah, I think my favorite bet, even with the Byron 17-1, was Logano and Blaney to not top 10 in
Not
that
top
gap.
10, yeah.
That was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably not betting any of these currently. I think they all obviously offer value, but as you mentioned with practice and qualifying, I think even Kyle Larson, like if he puts it on pole and is a rocket ship, that number is not going much below like 3.5 to 1. So I don't feel the need to dive in. Byron's probably my favorite with Chris Bell behind him, but I don't get the Truex thing. I would also say, if you want a piece of these guys but don't necessarily love the number, parlay. Like I've done some parlays with Rory McIlroy to win the golf tournament this week.
You know that Roy McIlroy hasn't played in this upcoming tournament since 2018, and he missed the cut in 2 of the last 3.
Yeah, but it was the Honda and no one cared, and it's a lot more. It's a lot better now, and he's the clear favorite. So if you want a piece, I also like Brooks over in Live Golf. Maybe you can find a trucks race or some. I don't know. There's ways to put it together to
I
get a
don't
little
hate
more.
parlaying Kyle Busch on Friday night
Yep.
with your favorite driver for Sunday. And honestly, I don't hate going with the KFB double time
Yeah.
here, because Kyle Busch is great at his home
Mhm.
track.
And
And his
he
numbers
dominated that truck race last year.
have been slowly sinking since they've opened just yesterday.
Speaking of KFB, you can get him as long as 12 to 1. That one's interesting, especially because he is inside 10 to 1 at Caesars. Then we talk about the guys that I think we're both going to be in on. So Chase Elliott as long as 15, Ross Chastain as long as 15, Joey Logano as long as 16.
And if you're
Brad
not following
Keselowski.
me, you likely got a better number on Logano, because he's going to qualify inside the top 10. He's won here before.
Yep.
There's no reason why this guy should be so long at this track. I don't.
Yep. I already bet him in real life at 18. I am going to add him on here as my first bet at 16.
Okay,
Over.
just to give you guys an example, I bet him yesterday at Westgate at 20 to 1.
Yeah.
That same driver at Westgate is currently 14 to 1.
Yeah. That's the way to do it. I think Ross Chastain's going on the card too. And I don't really want to get crazy, but like I really do and like the outright market this week. I think, and obviously we're away from the speedway tracks, right? So not only are we're not going to get maybe the same value on these numbers, but also it's a lot more predictable, a lot more reliable. There's still cars where tires fall off and brakes blow up and drivers have issues and speeding penalties happen and all that good stuff. But and it's so funny to think about it, Brian. We talked about Ryan Blaney, about how where he's priced right now at 9 to 1. Like this time last year, we were having conversations about like, can the guy keep it together for the whole race? Like it seemed like every week he was having an issue on pit road. He was having a speeding penalty. He was having some sort of issue. So it's just funny to see how the season ended, given the shenanigans that he dealt with all year, and then obviously where his new normal is heading into 2024. So I guess and we can talk. We'll cut it off. I mean, because there's so many names. Keselowski, Bubba's interesting at 22, Alex Bowman at 22, Chris Buescher. Well, and then I'll stop at Ty Gibbs at as long as 28. So I guess of this range from basically Chase Elliott to Ty Gibbs, who's jumping out to you?
Well, I mean, again, like the Logano number, I still don't hate 16-1. And then Ross Chastain, he's been a rocket ship in Vegas since the next gen car. So the one worry that you have about the number one Trackhouse team is his qualifying efforts, which in the past we've talked about his lack of speed during that time, and it's something that actually occurred this last weekend in Atlanta. But they intentionally came into the race wanting more handling, and last year Chastain qualified inside the top 10 here, so I do think that's probably going to happen again. So this number probably gets a little bit shorter. So I don't hate adding that. And on that note, I am adding it, but it's 16-1 at Westgate currently,
What
or
is?
at Superbook.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, yeah. No, I think Chastain. I think Logano. Um, Alex Bowman. So Alex Bowman is really compelling. Was really good here in the spring, and then obviously had all of his stuff happen. So it was didn't run here in the fall, right? Yeah. Um, I'm kind of in on Ty Gibbs, and I think this is a good spot for him. I think he is somebody that came along, but like, do I really want to bet Ty Gibbs at 28 when I can bet Alex Bowman at 22? I don't know what to
I
do with
mean, in
that.
terms of equipment, they're probably fairly equal. And you saw Gibbs come out here, I believe it was the spring last year, and he qualified inside the top 5. So
Yeah.
if he does that again, this number is probably 20, 18. Now, do I think he can actually win? I'm not banking on it. It's not something that I think will actually occur. And he's probably a guy that I would prefer to wait and still get that long, 16 to 18 spot if he does qualify well and he looks good in practice, especially
Yeah.
because he hasn't won in the Cup Series yet.
Yeah. And with Daniel Suarez, like obviously he had his win at Sonoma, but it'd been a while since he won or was really competitive. I'm curious to see who the next, like, either first time winner and or someone who we just haven't seen a victory lane in a long time is, because I think we talked about it like the first year of the next gen car. We had new winners every week and it was wild, but as we've kind of gotten further and further away, the winner of the race has been a lot more consistently the same handful of names that we expect to see. So I'm curious to see who that could be, and I'm wondering if Gibbs is. So I'm going to add Logano and I'm going to add Chastain. Um, I might add Gibbs. I might add Bowman. Is there anybody else you're considering? Bubba at 22 is always interesting. Obviously, has been making tremendous strides at this track. Um, Anyone else, or should we jump into the next range?
You know what? I'm going to put Bubba on here just for the feels. This is going to be a
I don't
smaller
hate
play
it.
just because, I don't know.
At 22,
But
I like it. I think he's really strong. I think
yeah, he's good
obviously
here.
his teammate Tyler Reddick's, inside, 10-1. I think it
And
makes a lot
then
of sense.
I did want to ask you real quick, and we could, all of our viewers too, you can comment on this. So Superbook is only available in like 7 or 8 states currently, but they have some awesome freaking numbers. For
Yeah.
instance, I have it on the card right now, but KFB 16-1 at Superbook is still available, whereas everywhere else he's 12 or 10.
Yeah.
So, to you, the viewers, should we include these numbers or should we not, because they're not widely available to the people that are watching this? So go ahead and answer that. I'll make an adjustment to the card if so, and let's keep rolling down this odds train.
I think we include it, but and then just and mention what we'd be willing to go to, because I think if we can find it and market, especially like it's Vegas and it's Arizona and it's places where people are actually able to get down.
Yeah,
Like if it was some like jabroni book, like offshore or something like that, most people don't have access to,
yeah.
or just like some one little shop in Indiana that doesn't have good numbers. Like I would say, but I think it's fine. But yeah, let us know down in the comments what you think, because I think, you know, if you're in Vegas, obviously you can get to it. If you're in Arizona, it's in a few other states. I think a lot of these books are only in a handful of dominant states. So,
And I will say on Kyle Busch though, I would not bat an eye at betting at 12-1 either, because he's probably going to qualify really well, and he's been incredible here. Like he loves this track. He's probably going to be inside the top 5. So yeah, I don't hate the 12-1 spot either.
5 of his last 6 runs here has been a top 5 finish.
There
And
you
as
go.
Brian mentioned, if you want a little extra juice because you're not getting the 16-1, add the truck race and parlay it and do the KFB double up. You'll get a nice number. So
Yep.
I think that makes sense. Beyond there, Brian, is there anybody that you're looking at? Maybe, obviously, at a longer odds, we don't necessarily think they're a lock to win anything, but maybe we're talking on Saturday and they qualified really well. They looked awesome in practice and their numbers cut in half. Maybe they're 25-1 instead of 50 or 60. Maybe they're 35 or 40-1 instead of 100, 125. Is there anybody that you're like, you know what? I could see a path where when we're talking on Saturday, that number is significantly shorter and I'm happy to have it on my card?
I mean, there's nobody in particular, but I have a hard time passing over a Penske car at 100 or 125 or 150-1
Yeah.
when look, yeah, last year he literally sucked. I mean, he was terrible. That said, I mean, if Ford has figured out their issues that they had last year at 1.5s, where they were, losing speed, their long runs were terrible. He's going to be good here. He's qualified inside the top 10 in 3 of the 4 next gen races at Las Vegas. This number will not be available post qualifying, in my opinion, and it's likely going to be in that 60 to 70 range. So, I mean, if you're throwing a dart on somebody that could potentially benefit at something late in a race, why not Austin Cindric?
It's scary how much doing this show together over the years has linked up our brain. Because I was literally pulling up the driver averages page for Austin Cindric at this track. And I'm going to add him like for a fraction of a unit. 0.2, I think, is what I'm going to go with. But 150-1 is what we can get. Like, sign me up. Like, this is a guy who's qualified. His 4 runs, as Brian mentioned, qualified 3rd, 2nd, 9th, and 19th was the October race. So in the 2 spring races, he started inside the top 10 both times. Last March, he finished 6th after starting 9th. Has had 2 great runs in October of 22 and March of 23. And the fact that both of his teammates are so strong and so highly
Exactly.
thought of, and Logano's number is crashing and Blaney's number is really short, it's really, really compelling. And we'll talk, when we flip over and look at some other stuff, even Harrison Burton, not necessarily a Penske, but sort of a Penske adjacent, is kind of interesting as well. So it's like, that garage clearly has a knack, and even with some of the kind of struggles they had, they're still able to put good results together and be
Exactly.
strong performers. And obviously last year Blaney and Logano had issues, but it's not a car performance thing. It was just shenanigans. So,
And that's why, like, for a guy like Cindric, right now would be the time whenever the friggin' markets open up, because books, I mean, albeit it's only Tuesday. Last week we didn't get odds until late Tuesday because the 500 was run on Monday. So I feel like we're late on things this week for some reason. But when the placement markets actually open up, look at Austin Dillon's top 10 number, because you're probably going to get nice juice on that, because he doesn't necessarily finish well. He starts great, but that number will shrink post qualifying.
and if you really want to throw a dart, if you want to get wild, I don't hate Noah Gragson in the SHR. This is a place where Almirola had success. I know Gregson wasn't great with Legacy, but this is
I'm
a
not going there.
home track. At 250 to 1, I'm probably not putting more than a couple dollars on there just to see. But it's probably more of a once as we shift over here to Caesars and talk placements. Do we have top tens at all?
No, no, I don't think a single book has the top 10 market
Let's
yet.
see
Oh,
what
the only thing
Caesars.
available is top 3.
That's a bummer. Well, they have both to finish top 10. You can get Larson and Byron to both to finish top 10 at minus 135. I don't hate that,
Yeah.
to be honest.
What if one of them wrecks? Like, I'm not paying negative juice on 2 guys to. I mean,
Kyle Busch and Ryan Blaney at plus 140. Logano
yeah,
and Chase or Bubba and Bowman at plus 340. Let's look at some manufacturers. Because that's an interesting way to get down on some guys. Maybe you don't want to put that juice on Larson, but plus 145, not too bad. Plus 250 on Byron, plus 400 on Kyle Busch. Chastain at 650. Top
what market are you in
Toyota.
right now? Oh, you're in the.
I'm in Caesars looking at top Chevy. Like I don't think Byron's bad at plus 250, but it probably has to win the race.
I was just gonna say if that's the case with Byron, I would rather just bet him to win the race. And honestly, if you certain markets are offering it, if you could get Byron versus Larson, he's going to be okay. Caesars has it, for instance, he's plus 130 over Larson.
Yeah.
Just bet that, and then don't even care whether or not he finishes as the top Chevy. To me, you mitigate a lot of risk there with that.
So I talked a little bit about it. I was going to bet Gibbs at 28. I'm just going to bet him to be top Toyota at 12 to 1. I like that much better.
Yeah, again, it's a similar type of decision making with those guys. Like you're not relying on him to win the race. He doesn't even have to finish top 5.
No. And I'm getting a good payout. I like the bell number as well. I almost put that down. But I think Gibbs is the best price per dollar relative to being the top Toyota. I think that's a good number. Cindric's 20 to 1 to be top Ford. I don't hate that. Because if he's all of a sudden contending, or if we see what we saw last year where Logano and Blaney both have issues and he's able to put together a nice race.
I don't hate that at all.
20 to 1.
I don't know if I could get down on that though.
But see, like 20 to 1 on a guy who's 150 to 1, or 12 to 1 on a guy who's 28 to 1. Like I feel like the Gibbs price is so much
Oh
better.
yeah, it's way more compelling, and he has a lot less cars to compete with as well.
Yeah. Is there a poll bets?
Oh yeah, there's no way they have those available yet. If they don't have top
No?
10s for us, there's no way they have poll bets yet.
But they have manufacturer props. I don't know.
Look,
Race to go to
shouts out to Caesars, man. Like
Race to go to
week in and
overtime.
week out.
Yeah. They want to sponsor the pod. We'd love to feature them as our sports book of choice and not talk about anybody else.
Yeah, I'd be down for that because
Race to go to overtime 3 to 1. Don't hate that. I know it's not as there's not as much carnage expected, but
hey, we're getting a new right side tire this week, so new tire, unknowns. Who knows?
Yep. All right, let's go to scheduled. So we have front row versus Colleague, plus 175 for Colleague. 2311 versus Penske. Don't hate that. Trackhouse versus RFK. Trackhouse at plus 135 versus RFK is really compelling.
I
But
mean,
I guess
honestly, it's really Chastain versus both RFK guys because
yeah,
Suarez
I
is
don't know
good
that
here, but
I don't know that plus 135 against two drivers. Like if you got a group with, Chastain, Keselowski, Buescher, and somebody else plus 135 doesn't feel.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right. Well, I mean, a good indication of that is that Caesars, for what it's worth, they have Daniel Suarez pinned up against Eric Jones. I mean, it's a little step down between Chris Buescher and Brad Keselowski to Eric Jones.
Do I go back to John Henry versus Carson Hocevar? Do I go on the other side? Or do I just run away and hide?
No, because I like Carson Hocevar this week, so do not bet Carson Hocevar.
LaJoy at plus money versus Ricky Stenhouse?
Stenhouse is good, though. Like, he's been decent here.
Yeah.
I know a couple years ago we liked him, potential top 10. He had an issue on pit road. I think he's sped, which cost him that.
Frisky Business, Chase Briscoe versus Austin Cindric?
Nope.
No. Logano versus Keselowski. There's my play. Gragson versus Josh Berry. Minus 105. I don't know. Part of me is like, if Gragson has a good race, do I expect, like he's got a wide range of outcomes that I don't think Josh Berry has. So
yeah,
the head-to-head market might not be the move. Let me see here. Because last year, Berry ran this race. Or was that just his October one?
I think he just ran October.
Hocevar ran, started 25th, finished 36th in October. I
think he wrecked like early in that race. One thing that I'm finding really difficult right now for this week's race is that knowing how important practice and qualifying is going to be, it's really hard at the moment to try to get down on some of these markets because we really don't know a lot about what we're going to see because the Fords and Toyotas with the new body styles, like there's so much uncertainty there. The only constant we have is the Chevys.
Yeah. And that's why I'm trying to get down on numbers that I think have the ability to move pretty significantly based on how qualifying goes. So, Logano 16, Chastain 16. I think both those could be inside 10-1 if they qualify as well as we expect. Cindric's 150. I think that number is probably like 45 or 50 by the time we talk on Saturday. And then the Gibbs top Toyota, if he qualifies well, looks halfway decent. I think that number crashes to 4 or 5, maybe 6-1. So getting all those numbers locked in is kind of my goal as we talk on Tuesday. And then obviously as the week rolls along, we'll get more information. We'll get more markets. We'll add more bets. As I mentioned, make sure you're following us both on Twitter. We'll try and tweet all those out as we add them to the card. We'll also add those to the Substack, AOP podcast.substack.com. I'll put that down in the comments. Free newsletter. You get our full card. Come check that out, as well as DraftKings picks, our favorite bets, all that good stuff. And if you're figuring stuff out throughout the week and you have questions or you want to talk NASCAR and figure some stuff out with us, hit us up. You can add us on Twitter. You can DM us, whatever you want to do. We're happy to chat, happy to talk.
I'm always open for talking about NASCAR.
Yeah, all things betting, all things NASCAR, and we're online a lot, so feel free to add us. And maybe some of the other smart people that follow us and we follow will get involved and add their 2 cents and give you some thoughts. Cindric at minus 110 versus McDowell is really compelling.
McDowell's got a fast car, though, man.
Sure does.
Hasn't been great here, but his car
KFB at plus 115 versus Blaney.
I have a hard time betting elite guys against each other like that. Unless the number is big. Like the Byron versus Larson thing, for instance. Like that should not be plus 130 in my opinion.
All right. Well, I think that will do it at this point. Was there anything else you found that you want to mention, or any thoughts that you want to get down before we recap the card, give people our thoughts, at least at this point, and then get out of here?
Yeah. So again, if Superbook is available to you, they call it race props, but it's essentially over under finishing positions. And because these dropped well before any other placement markets, you can find some interesting numbers here. For instance, like my favorite one that I already have down, or two of them, Kyle Busch and Ross Chastain are both set at 10.5, and they're minus 110 on both sides, either to finish worse than or better than that spot. So, like, I can almost guarantee you both are going to open up in the top 10 markets somewhere around the minus 150 at minimum spot, considering both have done this in at least three of the last four in the next gen car.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great point, and I think, like I said, if you have access to it, there's like, even, what was it? Bubba was a long one,
Yeah,
and
but Bubba's at 12.5, and he's been really good. He's been really good here. Another one that's really intriguing for myself, considering I talked up Austin Cindric, is the fact that his spot is set at 18.5. Like, if you think he could finish better than half the field, that's a brilliant bet. But you're probably going to get a way better top 10 number.
yeah.
So I'd wait to get to that market.
So Underdog has some pick'ems. I think Ty Gibbs at better than 13.5, I think, is interesting. Chastain, obviously, inside the top 10, I think, is interesting. Kyle Larson, man, they have some spots. Like Alex Bowman, 12.5. I think that's really interesting. I don't even hate Logano. Logano feels like a safe top 10.
Look at Kyle Busch right there, 7.5.
Yeah.
Denny at 6. Woo, baby.
Yeah. The thing is hard is you gotta kind of pencil in your top 10 to figure out too, because you can't like does it make sense that both Gibbs and Chastain and Alex Bowman, say, are all at or near the top 10? Sure, but you also have to make room for Byron and Larson and Blaney and
Yep.
Logano, and maybe not all of them get there, but you have to have at least 4 or 5 spots. You can't like do a four of the top 10 and expect it just to kind of cobble together. So it's something to think about as if you're building those. So you can check those out and see if there's anything that tickles your fancy. I think my favorite right now is Gibbs for sure. Maybe we fade Truex.
Truex has been money here, though.
He's been so good. I don't know.
And that's the problem with Las Vegas, is that you can't get too enamored with especially the top 10 market, for instance, because it is the who's who of NASCAR that finishes up at the front.
Yep.
At this track in particular, or most 1.5. So I mean, some of these guys are getting left out. One of these guys is probably going to wreck. One of these guys is probably going to finish a lap down because he has a pit road issue, or like Denny did a couple of years ago, he freaking blows his rotor coming out of pit road, just trying to merge back into traffic. Yeah, so I don't want to get too exposed to that market, and then also I don't want to be playing everybody to finish inside the top 10 either.
All right, so let us know down in the comments both what you think about using Superbook as an option. Do you think it's a viable option, or do you think it's too niche for most people to get access to? And then let us know your favorite outright. Who is the guy you're betting now that you feel like comes Sunday morning you're going to be so happy to have a ticket sitting in your pocket? All right, so right now I have Logano at 16. I have Chastain at 16. And a small piece of Austin Cindric. I'm considering Bowman. I'm considering Gibbs. I did add the Gibbs top Toyota at 12-1. I like that quite a bit. Brian has Chastain, Kyle Busch, Bubba, and Cindric, all at these prices here, 16, 16, 22, and 150. And then he has KFB in a group versus Reddick, Martin Truex, and Elliott at plus 280. So I think that's kind of an interesting bet. Is there one of these bets, Brian, that you are most excited about at currently, or you think could be a really real good value come race day?
It's the Kyle Busch group bet. Of these guys, he has the best average finish. Of these guys, he's finished ahead of all of them almost, I think, every single time pretty much in the next-gen car. His average finish of 6th in the next-gen car is 2nd, I believe. And then over the last 6, he's the only guy that has 5 top 5s in Vegas. Like, he is a machine at his home track. And for him to be the dog in a group of guys that have been good but not great here is crazy to me. And so I'm going to jump on the value now, expecting him to qualify right near these people and see his odds probably go down to plus 250, plus 240.
Yep. I like that a lot. I like the Gibbs top Toyota. I think he could qualify really well. If he puts it anywhere near the top 10, I feel like that number is gonna crater pretty good. And then I feel like Logano or Chastain are both really, really good outrights. And obviously, you're on Chastain. You have an interesting rivalry with Logano, so sometimes it's hard for you to get there, but don't fault you at all. That's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. Enjoy the rest of your week. As we mentioned, let us know in the comments who you like. Make sure you subscribe to the Substack. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you join the GridRivals. All this is free. All of this helps us significantly, and if we can help you cash a few tickets along the way, happy to do it. Let us know down on Twitter if you cash tickets, if you do well in DraftKings, any of those stuff. It really is cool to see that we're able to help the community kind of improve, get better, figure stuff out. We can do this all together. Happy to have feedback from everybody about stuff you guys want to see on the podcast. Make sure we, kind of get this going in the right direction, because this is ultimately for you and we want you to take the most value out of it. So if there's stuff that we could do differently that you think would be helpful to you and the viewers as a whole, please let us know. For Brian Twining, I'm Kyle Robert. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll talk to you next time.